John McCain spent 5 years as a POW after his plane was shot down during the Vietnam War.
Our next guest was imprisoned with McCain and says his loss of freedom made him appreciate America and our freedom so much more.
And joining us now is that former POW, retired naval pilot Everett Alvarez. Mr. Alvarez, thank you for joining us this morning. What are your thoughts as the nation mourns a war hero?
Oh, thank you very much for allowing me to be here this morning. Can I first express my sincere condolences from my family to Cindy and the McCain family.
Absolutely.
We knew this was coming, but it's very hard. I have a lot of memories about John. I didn't know John until 6 months before the war ended. Personally, I didn't meet him, but through our covert communication system, we knew when John was first shot down. We knew the difficulties he had, how really he was pretty helpless. He was in a body cast. He owes us a lot for his first cellmates. Bud Day was one of them. He's now deceased, a Medal of Honor winner, Orson Swindell, others who took care of him, fed him, cleaned him. You know, John was just totally helpless, but he made it. He's a scrappy fellow, and what always impressed me about John was that his father and his grandfather, senior naval officers. John could have used his influence, but he didn't. His commitment to service to his country. He wanted to be in the front lines, and he has quite an exciting story, including the captivity part.
And when that captivity ended, and you were released, and some of the other prisoners as well, as I understand it, he was really the first person, John McCain, you saw as you were being released. Take us to that moment, what it was like.
Well, I was actually just before we were released when I first saw him, and I first met him. And the Vietnamese had loosened up the conditions. They had knocked down the barriers, the walls between the big cells in the Hanoi Hilton. And so we had pretty free access to all of the major, all the big cells containing about 40 to 50 men in each cell. And I remember looking across the courtyard for the first time. I could see the other side, and I could see this one particular cell where this fellow was standing in the doorway, and he was shaking hands with everybody that walked by. He was patting them on the back. He was very gregarious, talking away, and I turned to one of my colleagues and I said, "Who's that fellow?" And he looked over and he said, "Oh, that's Johnny McCain." And I thought at that point, I said, you know, he's going to be a politician someday.
Wow.
And, you know, look what happened years later.
Absolutely. Everett, first of all, I just want to say what an honor it is for you to have you join us on the couch today to talk about this. Very few people have this common bond with John McCain of having, you know, served in a prison for that long together. We've had guests on that have said that it's not a coincidence that his campaign motto was country first.
Right.
What is it about the experience that you shared with him that you think really propelled him in his political career?
Well, I think that the experience of being a prisoner of war really focuses one's conscience into the fact of how lucky we are to be citizens of the United States, and then the camaraderie that we developed, the organization that we developed, I think strengthened our belief in that, because we really served in tough times with fellow Americans, fellow pilots, and I think that really has a profound effect when we came out. I followed John's career. I got to know him better, and by the time in 1998 at a Christmas reception at his home, he came up to me and to one of the other fellows and said, I want to do one more mission. And that was to run for president. Yeah. He says, "Let's go for it." And I remember, you know, right after that, sometimes just John and I was able to join him and help in his travels. Sometimes just 2 or 3 of us, but you know, it was always interesting to see how he was committed to public service, to doing what was right and what he himself felt. And he always really felt this way, that his service to country and what was right for the country came first. And I would say in most cases that was how he thought about his position and how he conducted his life.
And Everett, do you believe that in the final speech he gave in the Senate last July, when he talked about bridging the bipartisanship and the tone in Washington, that it really was that service going so many years back when he learned that you're there serving with the man and woman next to you? Do you think that played a big role?
I think it played a huge role. And you know, I mean, that is a life-forming experience, something like that. It just carries right through the rest of your life and everything that you do. And John was just he is a unique individual, but he was committed to this country and what was in the best interest of this country, and he demonstrated it. He walked the walk, as we heard it. Yes,
absolutely. We appreciate it. We'd be remiss as we honor John McCain if we didn't also say thank you, sir, for your service to our nation as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
More Fox and Friends on the other side.